James through about 200 oral questions and follow-ups to those, and he was under stress part of the time because there was no break, really. As a result of that intensive questioning, focusing on details of the actual assassination, both Reverend Abernathy and I came away with the view that he was not guilty of the killing. We didn't know what other role he might have played, but in terms of the shooting, we had no question that he was not the assassin. The story was plausible, and he was consistent, and I went back over it again and again in various details with him, and I found him credible. But beyond that, he had no knowledge of weapons whatsoever. When I went into the streets of Memphis and Shelby County and began to talk to people and began to look at evidence and began to consider issues with people who were there and on the scene, the inconsistencies that I found, the unanswered questions that I found, the unaccepted evidence that came forward, evidence that had been rejected that came forward, had a cumulative effect on me. And I knew, increasingly knew, that we were staring injustice in the face.
Your position is that you are completely innocent?
Yes. I don't have no responsibility for it. I did commit certain, they probably considered criminal offenses, but they were nothing serious. I probably wouldn't got over 5 or 10 years for them, aggregated.
Would you say that those criminal offenses were related to the case?
No, most of them are related. See, I escaped from Missouri prison in July 1967 and went to Canada. Most of them are related to that, false driver's license and fictitious names and all that type of thing, and there's nothing really serious.
And one witness has surfaced who says he knows Ray did not pull the trigger. Lloyd Jowers, who was there that day, told ABC's Sam Donaldson he knows something about that contract killer, allegedly in the bushes.
Did James Earl Ray kill Dr. Martin Luther King?
No, sir, he did not.
Do you know who killed Dr. King?
I know who was paid to do it.
Jowers says he will tell more, only if granted immunity from prosecution. So far, the Memphis District Attorney has taken no action. Former United Nations Ambassador Andrew Young, one of Dr. King's closest aides.
James Earl Ray, in your heart of hearts at this moment, you think he is innocent?
Yeah, I do.
And they say they want the justice Dr. King never received, and they want to know who really killed him. Of one thing they are certain, it was not the man convicted of the assassination.
Everybody is united in the belief that James Earl Ray not only did not pull the trigger, he didn't know there was going to be a murder that day. Everybody.
Absolutely.
Evidence I've seen and heard will vindicate or exonerate James Earl Ray, and also it will point the finger at who actually was behind the assassination.
This man has sat there 29 years, and he had almost basically nothing to do with this assassination.
I think truth...
So then, who does the King family blame for Dr. King's death?
I am told that it was part and parcel Army intelligence, CIA, FBI.
This is a staggering idea to carry around.
Yes.
I think we knew it all along. That's why we're not, like, jumping out of our seats, because we've known for years.
What's more, Dexter King now believes the plot went all the way to the White House.
Do you believe that Lyndon Johnson was part of the plot to kill your father?
I do.
Colonel Fletcher Prouty was head of special operations in the Pentagon in the 1960s.
I certainly knew of plans that were intended to bring about an assassination. For example, in the case of Castro. So they created an organization called Mongoose. Mongoose was the cover word for it. Now, the objective of the Mongoose program was to assassinate Castro by any means. We even used mafia hitmen, skilled mechanics, skilled killers. Now, there's no reason to believe that Mongoose ended when somebody decided that, well, we're not going to kill Castro this year, we'll let it go. But Mongoose is an Assassination Incorporated organization.
From your experience in government, Fletcher, do you think it conceivable that a secret intelligence unit could have planned and carried out the assassination of Martin Luther King?
You needn't have to include the word intelligence unit. It's just a secret unit. And there's no question about it being a unit. Anybody that thinks today that either Kennedy assassination, either one of them, or the King assassination, and others that we might go into, were done by individuals, just doesn't understand the business at all. The easiest way to see that the program is laid on in a team effort, carefully planned and carried out, begins after the murder, as how to get them out of there and how to cover the thing so people don't realize that a team of gunmen did the job. Martin Luther King was registered on the first floor. Somebody went there ahead of time and told the landlady of the motel that he didn't want to be on the first floor, he wanted to be on the second floor. Nobody in King's party had made that contact. You see, that's the advanced planning. Then afterwards, all the things that happened, the chase of Ray halfway around the world and all the other things that came up, are a cover plan which is so complete that even to this day, no one has broken the system completely, and you can't get it into the courts anyway.
Links between the police and the FBI were unusually strong in Memphis. Not only was Fire and Police Chief Holloman running the Memphis FBI in the early 60s, but he also worked for 7 years in charge of the office of FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover.
The Communist Party of the United States is a fifth column if there ever was one. It is far better organized than were the Nazis in occupied countries prior to their capitulation. They are seeking to weaken America, just as they did in their era of obstruction when they were aligned with the Nazis. Their goal is the overthrow of our government.
During the course of our investigation, we revealed the fact that the mission of the FBI was to destroy Dr. King.
It certainly was immoral, illegal, and unethical for the Bureau to use its power to try to destroy Dr. King, and particularly to do so by falsifying information. And they did falsify it over and over and over again.
And he should know, Arthur Murtagh was FBI agent in Atlanta for 11 years.
I was designated as the agent in Atlanta to handle Black Probe. The Black Probe was a program set up to develop informants in black organizations to keep the Bureau advised of the activities of blacks in connection with the civil rights movement. During that period, I spent a lot of my time developing black informants, and these were generally paid informants. During that same period, there was a vendetta against King that gained in momentum as the years went by, and I was in a room with my 7 other agents for the whole period while the wiretap was on.
Across the street from their office in downtown Atlanta, the FBI took a 7th-floor apartment for a 24-hour-a-day bugging operation on King's office, house, and hotel bedrooms. This was initiated by Hoover, who was at first convinced that King was under communist influence, then became obsessed with the wiretap revelations of King's sexual promiscuity. The FBI were guilty of bugging and harassing, but were they guilty of something more sinister?
It was about between 6 and 7. I remember that it was beginning to get dark, and I was standing at the sign-out desk with another agent, and the news came over the radio that Dr. King had been shot and killed in Memphis. And this agent, at that moment, turned to me and hit his fist together like that and said something to the effect, "By God, we finally got him."
Did you say they finally got him or we finally got him?
No, he said we finally got him. That was what... It was the we that stuck in my mind. He didn't say they. He said we. I see the Constitution as a framework which is in the process of development, and it's our job as Americans to constantly embellish the Constitution and build it into a type of system, not necessarily just a document, that will result in equal rights, equal opportunity for all Americans. And I take this very, very seriously. I always have. And when I saw the Bureau and saw the way that it was working, saw what they were trying to do to King, I felt that we had within our own country a sort of fifth column trying to destroy the purposes of the Constitution.
Look at evidence and began to consider issues with people who were there and on the scene. The inconsistencies that I found, the unanswered questions, the questioning, focusing on details of the actual assassination. Both Reverend Abernathy and I came away with the view that he was not guilty of the killing. We didn't know what other role he might have. They found him credible. But beyond that, he had no knowledge of weapons whatsoever. When I went into the streets of Memphis and Shelby County and began to talk to people and began to look, James threw about 200 oral questions and follow-ups to those, and he was under stress part of the time because there was no break, really, as a result of that intensive aid. But in terms of the shooting, we had no question that he was not the assassin. The story was plausible, and he was consistent, and I went back over it again and again in various details with him, and I